אוקיי.
מצוין, יופי, זהו. תודה רבה, תודה.
בשמחה. טוב, אז אנחנו מתחילות עם הפטרה לפרשת קורח. יש מישהו שרוצה להקדיש את השיעור?
בוא נקדיש את זה לברנדווין. מה השם שלו עוד פעם?
משה בן יוסף.
משה בן יוסף.
משה בן יוסף, לעילוי נשמתו, וגם אני אוסיף את שמחה שני, שהיום בערב זה היורצייט שלה, אז נוסיף גם אותה, שיהיה לעילוי נשמתם, ושיהיו נשמות שמליצות יושר בעד עם ישראל, בעזרת השם.
אמן.
טוב, אז פרשת קורח היא פרשה שכולנו מכירות את המחלוקת בין קורח ועדתו מול משה. הם קראו, אנחנו אומרים, קראו תיגר על המלוכה, אוקיי? הם שאלו, זה לא פייר, למה משה ואהרון הם המנהיגים, לא כל העדה הקדושה וכולי וכולי. ואולי זה אחד הקשרים להפטרה שלנו השבוע, כי השבוע בהפטרה, בספר שמואל א', יש לנו את העם שמבקש, רגע, אדמת, אוקיי, יש לנו את העם שמבקש להמליך מלך על עם ישראל, ושמואל הוא הנביא שמתפקד, שמכהן, והוא לא כל כך מרוצה מזה, עוד מעט נדבר על זה, אבל קודם כל זה אחד הקשרים לפרשה, אוקיי? שבפרשה
הוא גם כן צאצאי של קורח.
וההסבר השני, זה המדרש שהבאתי לכם, בספר, לא מדרש, אלא בספר דברי הימים כתוב, ששמואל הוא בן יצהר בן קהת, כלומר שהוא צאצא של קורח. בתור ילדה תמיד למדנו שקורח ועדתו נבלעו באדמה, ולא נשאר מהם זכר, וזה היה העונש שלהם, ופתאום
Can you translate, please?
Oh, okay.
English.
Sure, sorry. I didn't see your picture on the phone, so then I forgot.
Oh, right here. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm saying that one of the connections between the Haftarah and the Parasha is the issue of Korach, that he is not accepting the melucha, the anhaga, the leadership of Moshe and Aaron, and he wants to be leader. And in our Haftarah, the Haftarah is dealing with Shmuel and Navi, that he is the Navi now, and Am Yisrael are saying we don't want a Navi, we want a king, אנחנו רוצים מלך. So maybe that's one connection, and the second connection is that Shmuel and Navi was a descendant of Korach, and we would think that maybe that's not such a great connection. Why are they even mentioning it? And we learned, that's what I started to say, that as a little girl I always learned that Korach and Adato, they all were swallowed up in the ground, and that was the end of them.
Right.
And all of a sudden in Tehillim we see למנצח בני קורח, יש כמה מזמורים עם בני קורח. So what is the connection? And Chazal tell us in one of the midrashim, they say that while they were being swallowed up in the ground, I don't know how many, maybe Becky knows exact, אבל חלק מהבנים שלו עשו תשובה, they did תשובה and they climbed out of the pit, הם ממש טיפסו החוצה מתוך הבור, והנה אחד הצאצאים שלהם זה שמואל הנביא. אז אולי זה החיבור לפרשה שלנו השבוע. We'll see a few more things that are common between the parasha and the haftarah. אבל we're not going to read the whole haftarah because it's a long story. I just highlighted and I'm going to עוד נצטט פסוקים שנשתמש בהם. אבל קודם כל, the first question that we have to ask about the haftarah is, why does Shmuel object to crowning a king? מה הבעיה? הרי יש מצווה לבני ישראל כשמגיעים לארץ ישראל, לשים מלך. זה מצווה מהתורה. למה הוא מתנגד? מה לא בסדר בזה? אוקיי? וכדי לענות על השאלה הזאת, yeah.
It was a mitzvah, but it wasn't that it was given like wholeheartedly. Meaning Hashem knew that we were going into Eretz Yisrael and that we needed something because we asked for it. but it wasn't like he really, because he knew that there would be consequences with it. So it's good and it's not good. It's like, and that's why they have all the halachot that come with being a king, because they knew that there could be issues with idolizing or the king himself, like taking too much power. So it's good and it's not good.
First of all, the Rambam says it's a mitzvah, so that's
It
one
is
of the
a
mitzvot for the but that's one of the mitzvot for the Mashiach. That's one of the criteria for the Mashiach. The problem here wasn't that he objected. The problem here was objected the way they asked for it. They asked for it k'mo kol haguyim. In other words, they didn't want a king like Am Yisrael. They wanted a king like everybody else to take care of their military problems. That's not what a king is supposed to be doing. The king is supposed to be melech.
1 second. Let's see. So first of all, I can agree a little bit with Hindi, but there's something here much deeper. There's something here much with a very big a message for Am Yisrael. Okay? אז בוא ננסה להבין את זה. And in order to understand Shmuel's objection, first of all, we should understand and what is the, I'll say it first in Hebrew, מה הרקע לבקשה הזאת? באיזה ימים הם חיים? What the era that they're living in, what's going on then? This is the, I want to remind you that we said about Shmuel. Shmuel is the last shofet, okay? So זה ממש תקופת השופטים שאנחנו מדברים עליה, okay? And it seems like the main topic in Shmuel's speech over here in Perek Yud Bet in the Haftarah, he's talking about the instability, choser yetzivut, at the era of the Shoftim, okay? And what kind of instability is there בתקופת השופטים? There are two types of instabilities. One of them, היציבות מהסוג הראשון, זה בעצם, there's no one to rely on, there's no כתובת, there's no one to turn to when there's עת מצוקה ומשבר, when there's a crisis. Who are they going to go to? They don't have a king, they don't have someone that they can find, someone that they can speak to. זו תחושה באמת מאוד מאוד קשה, אם אפשר להגיד על זה ככה. There's no one who's taking responsibility in עם ישראל. אוקיי? יש כאן משהו מאוד מאוד, איזה ואקום שלטוני כזה. אוקיי? There's no one that's in charge over here. We learned a few parashot ago in ספר שמות, in בשלח, about דבורה הנביאה, that she tries to convince Barak to go out to war. Do you remember that? אוקיי? ממש התאמצה לשכנע אותו לצאת בראש העם. אין להם מישהו לסמוך עליו, אין להם מישהו לפנות אליו, וזה בעיה ראשונה בתקופת השופטים. And the second problem is that even though a שופט came along, אוקיי? אין מנגנון העברה מסודר של המשרה שלו למישהו אחר. It's not like if this is the shofet now, then his children are going to be the shoftim, and then his grandchildren, and then his great-grandchildren. It's always like someone all of a sudden shows up out of the blue, Moshiach et Am Yisrael, and disappears again.
It's also very local. It's not the whole Am Yisrael. It's that those particular shvatim that are connected to that particular Moshiach. We see that all the time. This is from this shevet and this is from that shevet and the other shvat. That's one of the criticism of Dvorah, that the other shvatim didn't come.
אז זה בדיוק העניין, that there isn't anything יציב, קבוע. There's nothing stable over here.
There's nothing central. There's no centralized government.
Okay, but it's not only government. We have to remember that we're talking about days that, כאילו נכון, today government מכסה הכל, גם ביטחון, גם כלכלה, אבל גם מבחינה רוחנית, לא היה שם מנהיג, לא היה מישהו שלוקח את זה.
אבל יש לי שאלה. There's something that I don't understand also about the whole תקופת of the שופטים. When Moshe was going to die, so it was known that Yehoshua is appointed his follower. When Yehoshua passed away, was there any kind of public announcement who's going to be the leader in his place? There wasn't. Every time a shofet got up, so who said the shofet was recognized as a central figure for all of Am Yisrael?
He wasn't.
It was.
נכון, זה עוד יותר מחזק מה שאת אומרת, שרה, שהמצב הוא חוסר יציבות, it's unstable, no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. זה ממש ככה, and
like today.
עכשיו נוסיף לזה, let's add to it what we call מעגל החטא, because עם ישראל sin, they go off the דרך, הקדוש ברוך הוא punishes them, okay, either it's something economically, but economically is really agriculture, there's no rain, or there's something that causes their תבואה to not succeed, יש להם עונש, הם זועקים לקדוש ברוך הוא, and then הקדוש ברוך הוא sends them some kind of a שליח. You'll see in the Haftarah that וישלח השם, it appears a few times. And הקדוש ברוך הוא sends them some kind of a shaliach that helps them, and then he disappears, and then we're back to square one. זה המצב, כל הזמן, זה ספירלה, constantly the same thing. So I also want to say that this instability is something that causes a person himself to be unstable. I would say in Hebrew the word me'ur'ar. Me'ur'ar, I don't know how you say that in English, אבל מעורער זה, הוא לא בטוח בעצמו, אין לו ביטחון.
In turmoil, he's in turmoil.
אוקיי? אין לו ביטחון, he doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow, אין לו שום דבר בטוח בחיים. וזה כשלעצמו מצב מאוד מאוד קשה להתנהל בו, it's very hard to live your day-to-day life when everything is in the air, אוקיי? אז maybe we can even say that ספר שופטים, one of the פרקים הראשונים, it says, בימים ההם אין מלך בישראל, איש הישר בעיניו יעשה. זה סימן העיקר לתקופת השופטים. אין מלך, איש הישר בעיניו יעשה. We use that also today, that term. Okay? as Shmuel is talking about this in his ne'um over here, about מעגל החטא, about the instability, about the turmoil of people, about each time not knowing where the Yeshua is going to come from, and now we can understand why Am Yisrael want a king. Give us a king, give us someone that is kavua, yetziv, shu yikach achrayut. His children are going to lead us afterwards. They want to hold on to something, okay? And I'm asking again, אני רוצה להזכיר לכם, מה כל כך גרוע בבקשה הזאתי? מה כל כך גרוע? Okay, so they didn't ask it in a good way, they said other things, okay, שוין. אבל אי אפשר להבין את הבקשה שלהם למלך, למנהיג, למישהו שלוקח אחריות. אז, so we really want to try to understand why Shmuel objects to crowning a king, okay? And I think the first thing that Shmuel tells us over here is that הוא רוצה להציע לנו להסתכל אחרת על המצבים האלה בחיים. Every person has in his life his ups and his downs, and we're talking today more about our challenges and our down times in our life. And Shmuel says, you know, the first thing that you have to understand is not to get so scared of a challenge in your life, okay? If you have the right kelim, if you have the right knowledge how to get up, so then you won't be so scared of falling. זה הדבר הראשון ששמואל אומר לנו, לא להיבהל ממעגל החטא. אוקיי, זה מעגל החיים, יש חוסר יציבות, חוטאים, עושים תשובה, עוד פעם חוטאים. לא צריך להיבהל, כל עוד יש לנו את הכלים לצאת ולהתרומם מהדבר הזה. אוקיי? לעלות כל פעם בחזרה.
So Shira?
Yeah.
Then it sounds more like it's not so much that he didn't want them to have a king. He wanted them to make themselves representing, that it should come from themselves. Because if he has to give them this musar in the beginning, it means he wants you to be in charge.
יפה מאוד. עוד מעט אנחנו נראה את זה על כל ההתפתחויות שלו, אבל את צודקת ב1,000%. We're going to see that Shmuel is trying to be מחנך them, and let's see what he's trying to לחנך. Okay? I also, טוב, בוא נמשיך לפי הסדר. As what is the connection, in your opinion, between אי יציבות מתמדת בשלטון and מצוות המלך? Instability in the government and a king. What is the connection over here? מה אתם אומרות? מה הקשר?
Well, the king comes to rectify, to fix the problem of instability. Hopefully, in an ideal world, the king, with the king, there's no instability or stable community, stable society.
But it really depends what kind of a king it will be.
Exactly, it just depends. But in theory, that's what's supposed to happen.
נכון. אבל בואו נתחיל שחוסר יציבות בשלטון, אוקיי? חוסר יציבות בשלטון מוליד אנרכיה חברתית, היעדר שלטון מרכזי, יש בעיות דתיות, יש בעיות מוסריות, כלומר, whatever happens down there in the am is really dependent on the king. Do you agree with me? נכון? אם יש מלך שהוא ישר, אם יש מלך שהוא מוסרי, אז גם העם יתנהגו ככה. אבל אם יש מלך שהוא מושחת, ומלך שהוא רק נהנה מהשררה של השלטון, אז גם העם יהיה לו שם הרבה מאוד בעיות. נכון?
Part of the problem is that not only that Shmuel was a good Navi, but they saw that Habanim Shelo hem lo hochim b'derech shelo, and they already had that with Gidon. You already know what happens when the sons are already corrupt. In other words, what was going to happen after Shmuel, that was the fear. That was the question. They didn't want their sons.
נכון, they didn't want their sons because they were corrupt. They went off the derech. Aviyah and Yoel, those were the sons of Shmuel.
And they already had that with Gidon when what's his name killed 70 of his brothers. So they weren't looking forward to that again. That was already, something that already was in their past, not so far away.
But that could happen with any king also.
It could. But here was like a cycle. You had a Sophate, and then his sons were corrupt, and then you got another Sophate, and there was no continuity. Everything was like just
okay, but if you look back for Moshe, it wasn't Moshe's sons that continued.
Nachon.
It was his student that continued, not his son.
But his student continued because he was the one that gave him the
right. So Shmuel could have also appointed one of his followers or somebody that came alach derech Hashem.
Yafeh, so why didn't he do that?
Maybe he didn't have. We learned about Yosua bin Nun already. Kishuaya nar etzel Moshe, Kishuaya mesader at Safsalim. We don't hear that about Shmuel. Shmuel did that with Eli.
Who appoints the judges? I mean, in theory, it's Hashem who appoints judges, yeah? I mean, I'm sure that that's basically the process. So Shmuel can't just turn around and say, okay, I nominate so-and-so.
So I want to say that over here, I started saying before that Shmuel wants to educate us for something very, very important. And he doesn't see, he sees the disadvantages בתקופת השופטים, אבל זה לא מלחיץ אותו. And he says, and he wants to tell us a very important thing. He says, you, Am Yisrael, want to be dependent. You want to think that if you'll have a good king, הוא יושיע אתכם, הוא יסדר אתכם, his kids will be the next kings, and his grandchildren will be the next, וכן הלאה וכן הלאה. I don't want you to be in that kind of a situation. I don't want you to be dependent on melech basar v'dam. Who do I want you to be dependent upon? הפן הקדוש ברוך הוא. יש פה אמירה מאוד מאוד חשובה לעם ישראל ואלינו היום, אוקיי? When we think of תקופות לא יציבות, challenges, קשיים, בעיות בחיים, שמואל says, first of all, לא להיבהל, don't get scared, don't go into shock or anything. First of all, you should understand that this is part of life. And the second stage that you should understand, the second step, is to understand that if you have the right, I don't know if instrument is the right word to say, but the right kelim, you'll know אתה תדע איך לצאת מזה. עכשיו הוא אומר לנו, מה היתרון? What are the advantages? What are the advantages of instability in our life?
It spurs growth. It's for growth, individual growth.
נכון. Why?
Because you have to deal with it yourself. You have to learn how to cope and deal.
מה עוד? נכון מאוד. What else? What other advantages are in instabilities in life? אתה מגלה על עצמך דברים חדשים.
You're sympathetic to people, like you have understanding for other people when you have instabilities of your own.
נכון מאוד. It causes you to become a better person, we can say, in the way of being more קשוב ומתחשב באחרים. I want to add that you also have to be very, excuse me?
You learn from those mistakes or those problems.
You're in a learning process. נכון מאוד. You have to be more יצירתי. נכון? יצירתי, לפתור את הבעיות שלך.
It also opens the door for new things. Well, you said that.
נכון? You have to be more open-minded or maybe more flexible. You thought that you can only solve your problem in this way, but all of a sudden you can realize that maybe there are other ways that you can solve your problem. You have to be very flexible in your mind. Our mind, by the way, not our mind, our brain physically is very, very flexible. I was reading a book, it's called Crash Through, if anyone heard about it. It's an autobiography of a 3-year-old, of a guy that today he's not 3, but when he was 3, he got blind because he was playing around with his father's things and התפוצץ לו בעיניים. And then when he was 40 or 48, he got his vision back. והוא מספר את כל התהליך, זה ממש מאוד מעניין, אבל אחד הדברים שאומרים שמה, is that the brain is very, very flexible. If the brain had an amount of neuronim that were used in order for the sight, for to seeing and to להבין את מה שאנחנו רואים, so when you stop seeing, when the person becomes blind, what happens to those neurons that they just, איך אומרים, הם מתנוונים? איך אומרים להתנוון באנגלית?
I bet it means atrophy, probably, to shrink.
Yeah. Or do they continue living, but the brain uses them for other tafkidim in the brain. So whenever I try to convince or talk to one of my mityatzim about to change the way you think of things or do things, I always give this as a dugma, that our brain is very, very flexible. Even though it was a neuron of sight, now it could be a neuron that uses for taste or for listening or any other thing. המוח יודע איך לשנות את השימוש של הנוירון הזה לטובת חוש אחר או לטובת תפקיד אחר. אז בטח שגם אנחנו יכולים לשנות את הדעה שלנו. אבל we're going back to שמואל הנביא. So Shmuel wants to say that they shouldn't see disadvantage in the instability, but there are many advantages. Just like June said before, זה ממש אתגר, זה ממש הזמנה, אני אוהבת להגיד, זה הזמנה לצמיחה. זה הקדוש ברוך הוא מזמין אותנו לצמוח מתוך האתגר, מתוך הקושי הזה. Okay? And the next שלב, the next step is not only what you ask yourself and what you do with yourself, but it's also where do you feel that you are, who do you feel that you are dependent on? Do you want to be dependent on a בשר ודם, or בידיים של הקדוש ברוך הוא? כלומר, החוסר יציבות הזאת היא מובילה גם לגדילה וצמיחה פנימית, וביחד עם זה לחיזוק האמונה בקדוש ברוך הוא. I remember that it was very מתסכל for me, very, I'm forgetting my English. It was a very disturbing thought that people grow and flourish דווקא מתוך כאב, דווקא מתוך אתגר. When everything is good, you continue your life the way it is. Maybe you're very grateful and you have a lot of הכרת הטוב. אבל כשדברים לא טובים, this is the time when a person asks himself questions. איך אני אעשה את הזוגיות שלי יותר טובה? מה אני יכולה לעשות כדי שזה יצליח לי? אתה מתחיל להשתמש בשכל שלך ובלשאול את עצמך שאלות שמצמיחות ומקדמות אותך. ואלה שאלות שבאמת יקדמו אותי, ואני לא שואלת אותם כשהכל טוב. אתם מבינות מה אני אומרת? This is the way הקדוש ברוך הוא created us as people. The way to flourish, the way to become greater and greater is not during the good times, it's during the bad times. This is what makes a person greater. If you think about a little זרע, a seed that you put inside the ground, okay, how does it become a big tree? You put it in the ground, it's in the dark, it gets moldy, it gets smelly, it breaks into two, and only then does something start to grow out of it. זה דרך החיים. ושמואל הנביא רוצה להגיד לנו את זה. הדרך שלכם לגדול ולצמוח ולהתקרב אל הקדוש ברוך הוא, זה בחוסר יציבות, זה לא מתוך היציבות. When you get to יציבות in your life, when you're stable in your life, then it's what we call, as coaches, we call it the safe zone, the comfort zone. No one wants to leave the comfort zone. Why should I leave it? Okay, אבל דווקא the instability, the challenges in life, they're what cause us to leave the comfort zone. And I like to say that when you leave your comfort zone, you are actually enlarging your comfort zone. It becomes much bigger because you get adapted. אתה מסתגל, אתה מתרגל לעשות דברים חדשים שלא חשבת לעשות קודם. אוקיי? טוב, זה על קצה המזלג בנושא הזה. Okay, so just to sum up and say that Shmuel, this is the first reason why Shmuel doesn't want them to crown a new king. לא צריך פה מלך. למה? כי הם היו תלויים בבשר ודם. במקום להיות תלויים בקדוש ברוך הוא, במקום לגדול ולצמוח. מבקרי המקרא, בביקורת המקרא, they write a lot about Shmuel over here in this הפטרה, that Shmuel was actually full of ego, and he was really very sorry and very sad that he couldn't continue and his children can't continue, that all what he wanted was to continue being the king, ורק מסיבות מאוד אגואיסטיות הוא מתנגד למלך. אבל שמואל היה נביא, והוא היה נביא של הקדוש ברוך הוא. הקדוש ברוך הוא העריך אותו והוא עשה ישר בעיני השם. אז you cannot think of such a big נביא as being full of ego and being and feeling bad for himself that he can't be the Mashiach or the melech or the נביא. אי אפשר לחשוב במונחים האלה.
אני לא מבינה מה שאת אומרת. את אומרת שלא צריך מנהיג, שכל אחד אמור להיות המנהיג של עצמו, הוא have אנרכיה פה.
רגע, את מדברת על ביקורת המקרא או שאת מדברת על התשובה?
לא, אני מדברת בכלל. את אומרת שהם לא היו צריכים לבקש מלך, אבל היו צריכים לבקש מישהו שיכול להנהיג אותם. משה רבנו הנהיג אותם, כשהוא מת אז הוא שם את יהושע. אבל אי אפשר בלי אף אחד, ראינו את כל תקופת השופטים.
נכון, אבל שמואל רוצה, שמואל עדיין צעיר, שמואל מת בגיל 52.
נכון.
אוקיי? הוא עדיין לא זקן, הוא יכול להמשיך להנהיג את העם, הוא גם אומר את זה בנאום פרידה שלו, ועוד נגיע לזה, בעזרת השם.
רגע, ומה הוא רוצה שיקרה אחרי שהוא כבר לא שם? אחרי 120, מה הוא חושב?
הוא רוצה שהם יזכו אל השם. לא הם באים לבקש, ועוד נדבר על זה, הוא רוצה שהם יבקשו מהשם. לא שהם יגידו מלך ככל הגויים, הוא רוצה שהם יבקשו מהשם, שהם ידעו איך להתמודד עם זה, ולא לחשוב שיבוא להם מלך שיפתור להם את כל הבעיות. הבעיה פה היא בעיה רוחנית, בקי, לא בעיה מעשית של מי ישלוט בעם. אוקיי? זה בעיה רוחנית, שהעם רוחנית לא מבקשים את הפתרון מהקדוש ברוך הוא, לא רואים בקדוש ברוך הוא פתרון לכל הבעיות שלהם. הם כמו ילדים קטנים, תביא לי עכשיו את הארטיק שיהיה לי טעים וזהו. לא, יש פה משהו הרבה יותר גדול מכם. הקדוש ברוך הוא אומר לשמואל, תיתן להם מלך, לא אותך הם עשו כי אם אותי. הקדוש ברוך הוא מבין טוב מאוד את הבעיה פה. הקדוש ברוך הוא מסביר לשמואל, the problem is not you שמואל, the problem is me. They're not asking for me, they're asking for a person, for בשר ודם. זה הבעיה. And that's what I want to say, that Shmuel is objecting not to nominating a king or to crowning a king. He is objecting למלוכה. אוקיי? צריך להבדיל בין ההתנגדות של שמואל למלך למלוכה. אוקיי? שמואל is מתנגד למלוכה because Hashem is your king. You're supposed to be calling out הקדוש ברוך הוא, not for a בשר ודם. And the minute that Shaul is crowned and he becomes king, Shmuel loves him and he does everything in his possibility to help him be matzliach.
Too much.
Okay, נכון, and the Midrash says that he also gave him the years of his life.
נכון.
And that's why he died so young. He died at the age of 52, Shmuel הנביא. Okay? אז קודם כל צריך להבין, לשים את ביקורת המקרא בצד, because they always like to take these big leaders, big נביאים, and turn them into very little people that all what is מניע אותם is ego. אז זה מאוד חשוב להגיד את זה. זה נביאים, זה לא אנשים של אגו. אוקיי? אוקיי. אז בואו נמשיך ובואו נראה מה שמואל אומר לעם אחרי שהוא מתנגד למלך. Look at מי שיש לה את הדף מקורות לפניה, I gave you a little טבלה, אוקיי? השוואה בין משה לשמואל. So Shmuel is giving some kind of a נאום פרידה, a big speech, okay, about why he doesn't want king, and he's saying basically goodbye to Am Yisrael. And look what he says. He says like this, הנני, I'm reading in the טבלה, הנני ענו בי נגד אדוני ונגד משיחו, את שור מי לקחתי? Did I take anyone's shore? Did I take anyone's חמור, donkey? מי לקחתי? את מי? Did I rob? Did I steal? Did I take anything from anyone? Okay? ומיד מי לקחתי כופר ועלים עיני בו ואשיב לכם, I'll return it. And the same thing we see with Moshe. Okay? The same thing we see with Moshe. וייחר למשה מאוד ויאמר אל אדוני, אל תפן אל מלכתם, לא חמור אחד מהם נשאתי, I didn't take one of their donkeys, ולא ראותי את אחד מהם. ונשאלת השאלה, is this the שבח of Shmuel, of Moshe, to say that they haven't done anything bad to עם ישראל, לבני חסותם? משה הוציא את ישראל משעבוד מצרים, and he has to say exactly whose donkey he rode, whose donkey he took in order to go down to Paro and speak to him. Did he take it from his own, or did he take it from anyone else? Is this the שבח of Moshe? למה? למה משה ושמואל נכנסים בכלל לדיונים האלה?
Because that's exactly what a king would do. A king, but in all the nations with their taxes, and they take whatever they want from the people, and they're in control, and they want to show the people, this is what you want. Look at the way it's been up until now. We've been a leader that did not tax the people and did not take their property and did not act in any way improper towards them. They didn't turn them into avadim, and they didn't turn them into, which other people, they have to work a certain amount to be able to pay their taxes or whatever.
נכון מאוד. בעצם את מתארת מצב, שרה, that of corruptness in the שלטון was regular in those days. זה לא היה דבר יוצא דופן, אוקיי? השחיתות השלטונית הייתה ידועה בעולם העתיק. It was even natural. And שמואל מזהיר את העם מההשלכה, from the consequences of choosing a king that may turn them, just like you said, into avadim, and to pay all these high ransoms and כופר and מיסים and וכולי וכולי. כלומר, I understand you want a king, but you have to be aware, and you have to אתה צריך להבין, you have to understand that you can choose a king שהוא כן יבגוד בכם מבחינה כלכלית, הוא כן יהפוך אתכם לעבדים, okay? And what's most important about a king that Shmuel wants to tell them is that a king that will forget his place מול הקדוש ברוך הוא ולא ישמור את התורה, he is going to die together with the whole of עם ישראל. אז בעצם שמואל and Moshe, they both are talking about two issues. The first issue is that a king may go wrong, okay? And then you're going to all pay the very high price. בסדר? בין אם זה מחיר כלכלי או בין אם זה מחיר רוחני. דבר נוסף ששמואל רוצה להגיד פה, זה מה התכונה העיקרית של מלך. He's aiming over here to say, what is the main characteristic of a king? What would you say is the main characteristic of a king? מה צריך?
He needs an ego. He needs a big ego.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, for a king, it's good because that's how he rules, but for the rest of us, it's not so good.
נכון. אז בואו נחשוב על תכונה חיובית שהמלך צריך. מה אתם אומרות?
Gets to be a leader.
What does it mean to be a leader? What are the תכונות of a leader?
To be an example.
An example. יפה.
He needs to be yashar. He has to be honest.
Honesty. מה עוד? חסר לנו פה עוד דברים?
He has to understand the people.
He has to understand the people. נכון. You know what? Let's read Rashi and let's understand what he's saying, okay? When Moshe gets the tzivui that he's gonna die, so he asks from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to tell him who will be the manhig after him, okay? And he says, Yifkod Hashem Elokei Aruchot lekol basar ish al ha'eda. Okay, what does it mean, Yifkod Hashem Elokei Aruchot lekol basar ish al ha'eda, sheyavo v'yetzeh? What does it mean? And Rashi explains, and this is what we want to get to. Lo kederech malchei ha'umot, I want a leader to be not like the other leaders, like the kings of the different nations, sheyoshvim bebatehem, that they sit in their comfort zone, okay? Umeshalchin chilotem lemilchama, and they send out their soldiers to the milchama. What's wrong with that? מה אתם אומרות? מה הבעיה שהמלך יושב בארמון והחיילים שלו הולכים להילחם?
He's not prepared to risk himself, he only risks other people.
נכון מאוד. אלא כמו שעשיתי אני שנלחמתי בסיחון ובאוג, וכדרך שעשה יהושע ונלחם בגוג ובכל האומות לפני שהוא נכנס לארץ, יוצא בראש ונכנס בראש. The leader is supposed to be, leadership is, it means to give, it means להקריב, it means להתמסר, even though it's ever so dangerous. אוקיי? מנהיג לא אמור לראות בתפקיד שלו שררה או חיי נוחות בניצול מעמד. Let's look at the Gemara in Orayot. I didn't bring it to you, actually. I read it to you and then we'll say it in English. The Gemara in Orayot talks about the main characteristics of a leader, of a king. And he says like this, כמדומים אתם שררה אני נותן לכם, עבדות אני נותן לכם. You think that to be a king is שררה? Srara means that you enjoy all the benefits of being a king, of having a very comfortable castle, of having chayalim, of having money, of you're having the last word to say, okay? אתה חושב שיש לך הרבה מאוד יתרונות, he calls it srara. You should know avdut, it's slavery to be a king, it's slavery to be a manhig, okay? שמואל הנביא רוצה להדגיש את הנקודה that when you choose a king, you have to choose him very, very carefully. Someone that is willing to be a slave for his nation. If the king comes and thinks that he's only going to enjoy the benefits of being a king, then רק נזק יצא לכם מזה.
You can compare it to the mitzvot that Hashem gave about somebody who has an eved. That when a person buys an eved, he's also making himself an eved to the eved because he has to worry about him more than himself.
נכון, דוגמה מקסימה, שרה, ממש מקסים, תודה רבה. The Maharal brings a different דוגמה. I brought it for you, I think you have it in number 3. Look at the Rihal. He says, ישראל באומות כלב באיברים. What does it mean that Israel are like the heart of the other איברים in the guf? Because the heart and the brain, but we're talking about the heart, is an organ that doesn't stop working from the minute it was created. From the minute as a fetus, we were 4 weeks old, we had a heart, and it doesn't stop working. And the minute that it stops working, then we stop working. We have different organs in our body, okay? Let's say our nose or our eyes or our mouth or taste buds, they don't work 100% of the time. When you go to sleep, your legs are not working, your hands, your feet are not working, your eyes aren't working. נכון? יש לנו איברים בגוף שעובדים יותר ושעובדים פחות. אבל הלב עובד כל הזמן, הלב עובד, הוא לא מפסיק לרגע. This is what it means to be a king. This is what it means to be עם ישראל, כלב באיברים, בשאר האומות. אוקיי? אוקיי. So really, not the donkey interests us, and not how Moshe went down to Egypt, or how Shmuel and Navi went about. You know that Shmuel he didn't sit in one place. He was constantly on the run. He was constantly walking from Nekudat Yeshuv to Nekudat Yeshuv to be a shofet. And the Midrash says that Amar Rabbi Yochanan shekol makom she'alach beito imo. What does it mean, kol makom she'alach beito imo? It has, of course, first of all, the spiritual, that his wife, his children, kulam hayu shama bishvilo, that they were, הם היו בעד, they paid a high price, but they accepted it, that he was never home. And the Midrash, another Midrash says that, what does it mean she'alach beito imo? It means שכל מקום שהיה הולך, היה נושא כל כלי תשמישי בית עמו, שלא ליהנות מאחרים. Even though he could have asked for bed and breakfast any place that he went, he didn't. He took everything from his home in order not to take from other people. Okay? He was very מקפיד on it. אז הנקודה פה זה לא החומר שהוא לקח או לא לקח, אלא הנקודה כאן שמעניינת אותנו is the עיקרון. Okay, the base of his ani ma'amin, the way he saw life, that a leader is here in order to give and not in order to take. Okay, he didn't take advantage of his ma'amad as a navi. Okay, okay. בוא נעבור לחלק האחרון של ההפטרה. החלק האחרון של ההפטרה, it's very interesting because Shmuel is giving a speech, a נאום פרידה. And towards the end of the Ne'um Preda, what is he saying? I'm going to read the two psukim and then we'll try to understand it. הלא קציר חיטים היום אקרא אל אדוני, ויתן קולות ומטר, ודוראו כי רעתכם רבה, אשר עשיתם בעיני אדוני, לשאול לכם מלך. Okay, I'll read the second pasuk and then we'll explain. ויקרא שמואל אל אדוני, ויתן אדוני קולות ומטר ביום ההוא, וירא כל העם מאוד את אדוני ואת שמואל. Okay, what's happening over here? הלא קציר חיטים היום. Today we're in the summer. Chazal say that it's actually in Chodesh Sivan, because we know that קציר חיטים, the time that they went out and they harvested their חיטים, was in Sivan, in שבועות. אז כנראה שזה אולי זה עוד סיבה דרך אגב, שההפטרה הזאת היא נאמרת בחודש סיוון. הלא קציר חיטים היום, it's summer, and I'm going to make a miracle, I'm going to cause a miracle, ויקרא אל השם, ויתן קולות ומטר, it's going to rain, מטר is rain, okay? And then you'll know that you really did הרע בעיני השם by asking for a king, okay? So what happens? Shmuel calls HaKadosh Baruch Hu, הוא מתפלל אל השם, and lo and behold, it starts to rain. It starts to rain, and now Am Yisrael knew that they did hara b'nei Hashem by asking for a king, and the consequence of this miracle is vayira kol ha'am me'od et Adonai ve'et Shmuel. And does this sound familiar to you with Moshe Rabbeinu? איזה פסוק אתם מכירות שאומר את אותם דברים? ויראו כל העם את השם, ויאמינו בהשם ובמשה עבדו. אז זה מאוד מאוד דומה גם ממשה רבנו שנתנו מקודם דוגמה. אז עכשיו, למה צריך נס? Why a miracle? Why דווקא this miracle? מה אתם אומרות? יש לכם איזשהו רעיון?
Becky, you're on silent.
That's just the time to have rain in Chodesh Sivan. We're supposed to finish with that before Nisan. We no longer say v'tein talu matar livracha. That's it, finished.
But I think Shmuel is trying to show the connection to God.
Okay.
Yeah,
That God listens to us. So even if he's asking for something that's not in the season, and Hashem is able to give it, Hashem can give us whatever we want or whatever we need.
but you don't need that.
What?
You don't need that in Sivan.
No, but it's to prove something. If he was to do something that was lefi hateva, then it wouldn't prove anything. So he's asking for something that's not lefi hateva, just to show that Hashem is listening.
Yafeh. So first of all, maybe this is the reaction of Shmuel to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, כי לא אותך מעשו כי אם אותי. נכון? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens to Am Yisrael and he says to Shmuel, it's not you that they don't want anymore, it's me. So it seems that Shmuel is trying to save the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by showing the Am, just like Sarah said, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is listening, he's here for you. This is, look what you're missing by asking for a king. אבל זו תשובה מאוד מאוד חלקית.
I think
Okay?
I think there's also a part of it where most of the time rain is a bracha, but sometimes it's not. It's a cloud. It's a cloud. And if they're asking for a king, you're going to get both sides of the coin.
That's what I said.
You're saying a beautiful answer, but 1 second. I want to say one more thing before we say what you're saying. I want to say that I think Rashi say, or Radak say it, that Shmuel is trying to show Am Yisrael that he's not old and out of fashion and out of koach. Just like I can bring rain, I can call to Hashem at the time of war and ask Hashem to be Moshiach you. And why do you need a king? I can still be worthy for you. אתם רואים, אני מצליח לחולל ניסים. זה עדיין מראה שיש לי כוח, שיש לי את היכולת הזאת, אוקיי? כי העם אומרים שהוא זקן והוא שיבה, אז בעצם שמואל רוצה להגיד, כמו שאני יכול לשנות את הזמן בתפילה שלי, את הזמן של הגשם בתפילה שלי, ככה הייתי יכול גם לעזור לכם בזמן מלחמה, ולא צריך מלך. אוקיי? That's another answer. But then, June will answer, why dafka this miracle? Why dafka rain? Because just like June says that rain is nice and good and it gives us chiyut, it gives us life, it fills up our borat b'mayim, זה משקה את השדה. אבל מה קורה כשגשם יורד לא בעיתו? What happens when the rain comes down now in mid-June, in Sivan, and you make ציר חיטים? זה ברכה או כללה?
כללה.
It's a very big klala. So what is Shmuel really trying to say over here? מה אתם אומרות? למה דווקא גשם? מה הקשר? מה אתם אומרות? שמואל רוצה להגיד לנו שהבקשה למלך זה לא בקשה רעה, אבל העיתוי, הזמן והדרך שבה הם מבקשים את זה, זה מה שרע. כמו גשם שהוא באמת ברכה, אבל כשהוא יורד בזמן הקיץ זה גשמי כללה. גם מלך, כן?
Shira, isn't it also that when we learned about with Eliyahu, also when it came to rain, there's also like a connection. And I thought that it also is shayach to, let's say, Avodah Zarah. Like if when they do things that are wrong, and that's why we lost the rain then. So it's connected to a lot of things that have to do with Avodat Hashem.
Over here, it's a bit different. Because over here, he's talking about the timing. Because I want to remind you, it's a mitzvah me'atorah that when Am Yisrael come to Eretz Yisrael, they should have a king. It's a mitzvah deoraita kivyachol. So what's so wrong about it? So now we understand. We spoke about spiritually, במי אתה תלוי, ואיך אתה, how you grow out of instability וכולי. And now Shmuel wants to tell us another thing. He says that also any mitzvah that you do, you have to do it in a certain time. Otherwise, it's useless. If you go out and אתה נוטל 4 המינים, זה לא מצווה, זה ביזיון אפילו ל4 המינים. זה מבזה. אוקיי? כל מצווה, כל דבר, יש לו את הזמן שלו. And you're asking king not in the right time. Let's look, I think it's number 5, the Malbim that I brought for you. בוא נקרא את זה. המלבים אומר לנו ככה, המטר והקולות שהם טובים בעת זרע, נכון? איך אומרים את זה? כשזורעים זרעים באדמה, when you plant the seeds, that's an excellent time for the rain to come down. It's a big ברכה. אבל רעים בקיץ, but in the summer, it's very bad to have the rain. תבינו, כי שאלתם דבר שלא בעונתו. Your בקשה for king is like asking for rain in the summer. שאם היה מלך טוב לכם אחרי מותי, ובעת שאם היה מלך טוב לכם אחרי מותי, you would need a king, but maybe only after I die. ובעת שאתם נתונים תחת הטבע, והוא מראה לכם בעודני חי, but a king while I'm still alive is not good at all, because while I'm alive, השם צבאות is your king, and הוא יגן עליכם. אוקיי? המלבים מסביר לנו בצורה מאוד בוטה, כאילו, if you think about Shmuel, that asking Shmuel for a king while he's still alive is a big mistake. But after I die, it's the right thing.
What are they going to ask after that?
They would call to Hashem, לבקש מהשם מלך.
Yeah, except that, you know, historically, this doesn't make any sense. If we go back a little bit in Shmuel Aleph, which we're not, because that's not the Haftorah, Haplishtim lakhu et Aron Hashem. In other words, the Yitzivut is there, and it's very possible that Am Yisrael said, wait a minute, that's it. I mean, we went through Sfatas of Tim. Now the Aron is...
זה הבעיה, that Am Yisrael said that's it. זה הבעיה. שאתם לא נאחזים בחלום, שאתם לא מאמינים שהחלום הזה יתגשם. Don't give up. Why are you giving up? And there's another beautiful connection with the rain that I want to say before our time runs out. That, do you remember, before Am Yisrael enter Eretz Yisrael, one of the things, what I'm asking you if Mishi Zocheret, what is one of the things that Moshe tells them about watering their crops? אתם זוכרות? למטר השמיים תשתה מים, ולא כמו במצרים שהשקעת את השדה שלך בגן רגלך. כלומר, when you're going to enter Eretz Yisrael, you have to understand that things are going to change. In Egypt, how did you water your crops? Do you remember? The Nile was overflowed. The Nile overflowed. You had little te'alot that from the Nile to your crops, לשדות שלכם, וככה היה לכם יציבות, נכון? אתם ידעתם שכל עונה שהנילוס עולה על גדותיו, יש לכם איך להשקות את החלקות אדמה שלכם. You knew that your crops would be watered by the Nile. זה דוגמה ליציבות בחקלאות. But what's going to happen once you enter Eretz Yisrael? There's no more Nile. There aren't any big נהרות. You only have one נהר, the Jordan, נהר ירדן, אבל זה בכלל בצד השני של הארץ, מהמקום של השדות החקלאיות. All our crops, all our חקלאות is next to the sea, is במישור החוף. נכון? So even if you would want to use the water from the ירדן, אין לך איך להעלות את זה בהר ולהוריד את זה בהר לשדות. כלומר, אין יותר יציבות בארץ ישראל. אין יציבות של השקיה. מאיפה נשקה את האדמה שלנו? How are we going to water our crops? Moshe says, למטר השמיים תשתה מים. You're going to have to pick up your eyes to the הקדוש ברוך הוא in the שמיים and pray and ask and beg for water. ככה זה הולך להיות. This is not a punishment. This חוסר יציבות is for your benefit. כדי להדק את הקשר עם הקדוש ברוך הוא. To come closer. To להרגיל את עצמך בתפילה. להרגיל את עצמך שהקדוש ברוך הוא המענה לכל הבעיות שלך, ולא איזה נילוס ולא איזה מלך. לא במקרה פרעה אמר, אני הנילוס, אני עשיתי אותו. פרעה thought that he was the king, that he was הקדוש ברוך הוא. He got mixed up. This is the big danger of having a king. And now is not, one second, and now is not the time to ask for king. Now it's the time to pick up your eyes to the Kadosh Baruch Hu and get closer to Hashem and ask him to answer all your prayers. Yes, Hindi?
Shmuel picked Shaul.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to pick Shaul.
Shaul.
Okay. No. I mean, because even with picking Shaul and giving them somebody who they thought was great, he still messed up.
At the end, he messed up, but at the beginning, he was very good for them.
Right.
But why does the Kadosh Baruch Hu give in to Am Yisrael over here? Why is he giving them a king if it's not the right thing?
בדרך שרוצים ללכת, השם נותן לנו.
בדיוק. This
What?
is the pasuk. לא אותך הם עשו כי אם אותי. The great problem over here is not the tachlis of the king. It's that they don't want to ask for me anymore. They don't want to get close to me. They don't see me as their authority. And Sarah said, בדרך שבה רוצים ללכת, שבן אדם רוצה ללכת, מוליכים אותו. Okay? As הקדוש ברוך הוא gives in and he says, okay, what can I do? But Shmuel understands all this. And that's why he's trying his best to cause Am Yisrael to go on the right path. אבל הוא לא מצליח, והוא ממליך את המלך, and הסוף ידוע.
So interestingly, that Shaul turned out to be not such a great king. He had a lot of problems. And perhaps, I don't know, I mean, just perhaps that's a way of showing Bnei Israel that a king is not the answer for them. That they picked someone and it went bad.
נכון.
He also picked David HaMelech, so wait.
But can you come with complaints to someone when they're picking a king, when they're choosing a king? קשה לבוא בתלונות. This is what they understand from the place where they're standing right now. This is what they see.
But it's interesting because all of the issues that you have, whether it be Shaul, whether it's David, whether it's Shlomo, the Navi, I mean the
King.
it shows that it was all based on like a human mistake. Whatever their mistakes were, it was like Hashem was really trying to show you in each story that there's a limit, yesh gvul, that they're still not where I am, you know?
נכון. I think it's also has to do with the timing, like the Malbim says. It wasn't the right time for Am Yisrael to have the king yet. They had to develop a bit more. As טוב, אז בעזרת השם, we have a lot of things to take from this haftarah. Whether it is how to cope with instabilities in our life, or what is the right time for each thing in our life, and להרים עיניים לשמיים, נמטר השמיים תשתה מים, תמיד לפנות לקדוש ברוך הוא, כל אחת עם מה שהיא לוקחת מההפטרה השבוע. בעזרת השם שיהיה בשורות טובות ושנצליח להתקדם ולעבוד ולצמוח בעזרת השם.
Amen.
טוב, so thank you very much ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
טוב, ביי ביי, שבוע מוצלח.
שבוע טוב.
Bye bye.